Good morning. Buenos días. Bienvenidos. Welcome to Vamos a Comunicar, Serving the Hispanic Population. Vamos a Comunicar, Sirviendo a la Población Hispana. Before we get started here, I have a few announcements and a few thank yous. So first of all, thanks to all of you for being here today. Make sure you eat lots of food. Okay, I don't want to hear any of this. You know, I'm watching my carbs thing today. Okay, that doesn't count today. Okay. Our presentation today was sponsored by a grant from the Provost's office. It was a grant that faculty were invited to apply for on issues related to diversity. So the faculty in communication disorders chose to write a grant proposal to hold this conference today. And we were lucky enough to be awarded the funds to present this presentation for you today. That includes the food. So when you see the provost, say thank you. I got breakfast and lunch and I learned a lot. Okay. I also need to let you know that this session is being video recorded. So I want everyone to be aware of that. I'm also going to ask you to take a moment. You may have seen some flyers at the end of the table. I put some flyers out there about some relief efforts that are going on campus to help our citizens in Puerto Rico who are recovering from the hurricane. I lost my home in 1992 to Hurricane Andrew in Florida. I was very fortunate, though, because I had family and friends that could provide me with resources. The people of Puerto Rico, they don't even have drinking water right now. So please, if you didn't pick up a flyer on the way in, please pick one up. So I also need to make an announcement that there's a couple typing errors, and I'm going to explain why in a little anecdote shortly. So on your agenda, on the back side, our roundtable discussions are going to follow immediately after our breakout sessions, and hopefully everyone signed up for a breakout session outside. Please go to the one that you signed up for. Dr. Hernandez, maybe you could check that and see how we're leveled out. And then at 2:30, we are going to have our panel discussion on Universidad de Rosario. Okay, some of our panelists were involved in other activities today, so we do need to allow them time to be here. So that will be at 2:30. So that's my first typing error. Also, hopefully you picked up a bingo card. There's a typing error on that. If you can find where it says las dulces, it's supposed to say los dulces on your bingo card. Okay, if you didn't get a bingo card, pick one up during the break out front. Okay, so I'll tell you, let me before I blab on more about myself, let me introduce our faculty and our speakers that are here with us this morning. So I have my co-organizer for the event, Dr. Philip Hernandez, who's also a Stockton alum. He's an assistant professor in the Communication Disorders program. Also here are my colleagues from Communication Disorders, Marianne Scattarella, who's our clinical fieldwork coordinator, Amanda Copes, who's our clinic director, has joined us. And then we have some wonderful faculty members from the social work profession that have joined us. So Dr. Maria Wilda Colon, who's the executive director of the Stockton Center for Community Engagement. And we also have Dr. Jack Lewis, who's an assistant professor of social work. Okay, hopefully I recognized all of our faculty members. I also want to thank all of the technology folks that are here helping us today. I was telling Dr. Lewis that when I was in Florida, I used to be an assistive technology specialist, and I had a colleague that every time she did a presentation said we need to give a prayer to the technology gods. So let's keep our fingers crossed that they're not angry at us today. Okay, so now I'll tell you my little story about why I am a bad typist. And there are people that went to high school with me in this room, so they can attest to this, or they went to the same high school. So when I went to high school, we were on split session. So we had 2 actual high schools sharing the same building. And we only had 6 periods of classes a day and a 15-minute break in between your first 3 and your last 3. So that meant that you could have 1 elective, okay? And I think by the time I was a senior, because our esteemed colleague who's retired, Dr. Berry, told me that if I wanted to be a speech pathology undergrad at Stockton, I had to take all the lab sciences I could get my hands on, quote unquote. So I didn't have an elective my senior year. So sophomore year is the year that everybody was taking typing, okay? Because back in the prehistoric Stone Age, most people took they took shorthand so they could take notes, and they took typing, okay? Well, I had started out in elementary school. I grew up in Egg Harbor City, and we were fortunate enough to have a professor, Senor Hernandez, who was my first Spanish teacher, and that started in 3rd grade. And I just loved learning Spanish. So I took that through middle school, and then he retired. So I had a little hiatus. So when I got to Oakcrest as a freshman, they used to say, foreign language is too hard for a freshman. You have to wait till sophomore year. And I said, too bad, so sad, I'm taking it. So I took 3 years of Spanish in high school. That is why I never learned to type, okay? Because I said, if I'm gonna make a choice, I will hunt and peck, and 40 years later, I'm still hunting and pecking, and I cannot touch type. I have to look at the screen while I type, so I'm a bad typist to this day. However, I have used my Spanish language, as rusty and moldy as it is, in many instances. I was a speech-language pathologist for 17 years in Florida. My first job there was in early intervention through the University of Miami. There were many families that were coming in with children, high-risk medical needs, children with disabilities. And I said, okay, Amy, I forgot to say I did take Spanish in college, too. So I was pretty conversational when I got to Miami. But I was still nervous about using my skills. So I said, you are either going to have to go ask the secretary to help you every time you talk to a parent, or you're just going to have to suck it up and apologize for your grammatical errors and go through it. Okay, and that was what I did, and it was the best experience in my life. I learned a lot from the people around me, both culturally and linguistically. I've been back here in New Jersey now for 12 years. I have to admit, my Spanish is getting a little rusty. Okay, I do try to practice, not as much as I should with my friends and colleagues that speak Spanish. But I encourage you all that if you have not started learning a second language, it's never too late to do that. So please take advantage if the opportunity arises. All right. So what I would like to do now, I think we finished up all of our announcements. I would like to introduce our keynote speaker, Dr. Jack Lewis. He will be speaking on professional practice with cultural humility. He earned his bachelor's in psychology from Johns Hopkins and a master's in social work from the University of Pennsylvania. After obtaining his MSW, he spent 15 years working as a clinician, an administrator, and an educator at the University of Pennsylvania. And then he spent time as a lecturer at the University of Pennsylvania, Villanova, Temple, and Rutgers. And he joined the Stockton faculty in fall of 2014, teaching primarily in the Master of Social Work program. His research interests include teaching cultural competence and cultural humility in higher education and mental health and wellness in minority populations. Please help me in welcoming Dr. Lewis this morning.
Thank you. So good morning, everyone. Thank you for inviting me. I'm very humbled and honored. Thank you, Dr. Colon, for recommending me. And thank you, Dr. Hernandez, for inviting me. So today's talk is about professional practice with cultural humility. Here are the objectives. I'm going to start non-traditionally with a video called Danger of a Single Story, which is a very powerful TED Talk that kind of sets up for me, what cultural humility is about. Going to then define what cultural competence is, why cultural competence is important, talk about a couple of the theoretical frameworks of cultural competence, talk about what culturally competent practice looks like. Then I'm going to go into a definition of cultural humility, what cultural competent practice with humility looks like, and then I'm going to end it with another video, Man in the Mirror. I'm an old head, but it's another powerful video. So, a little background, as you heard, I am a psychiatric social worker by training. I've been a clinician, educator, administrator for the past 25 years. I've been at Penn, Rutgers, and Temple Schools of Social Work, and I've been here at Stockton since 2014. Sorry, there's a typo here. In my doctoral education, I did a dissertation on how schools of social work teach cultural competence, and what motivated me to do that was that while I taught as a part-time lecturer, I used to teach a couple courses on diversity and on American racism. And at the end of it, that typically was one of the few courses that talked about diversity. And at the end of the courses, I would always ask the students, so you've had this course on American racism, do you think you're culturally competent? Half the students would say, yes, I'm done, I don't take anything else. Half the students would say, oh no, that can't be it. But there are no other courses that talk about diversity or working with other populations. So that made me curious about, well, then, as a social worker, part of our ethical code is become culturally competent. So my question with the students was, then how are you planning to become culturally competent? What's your plan of actions? And it made me want to look at what other schools of social work, how they teach cultural competence as well. Hence my interest in cultural competence and cultural humility. So some of the objectives I want to talk about today are as follows. So cultural competence and cultural humility are lifelong processes. This session is designed to teach the importance of utilizing culturally competent practice with humility with diverse populations, talk about the difference between cultural competence and humility, talk about the process of developing cultural competence and cultural humility, the role of self-awareness in cultural competence and cultural humility, and the role of cultural competence and cultural humility in preventing a single story point of view. As clinicians and health practitioners, we're taught to use lots of instruments and tools. As a psychiatric social worker, we use the DSM to diagnose. And I'm not sure, you all use the same thing. So, the DSM is a wonderful tool, but unfortunately, with all the knowledge that we get, we sometimes can form single stories of our clients. And sometimes, forming a single story, we have in our head what our clients are supposed to look like, and we forget that our clients have a story to tell to help us form how we're supposed to work with them. Hence the need for cultural competence and cultural humility. So the topic of cultural competence has been increasingly emphasized in various disciplines: communication sciences, education, medicine, nursing, psychology, and social work. To prepare for this talk, I went to the American Speech Language Hearing Association website, and they have a whole unit on cultural competence, and they have a definition of cultural competence, and here it is. And it says it involves understanding and appropriately responding to the unique combination of cultural variables, including ability, age, beliefs, ethnicity, experience, gender identity, linguistic background, national origin, race, religion, sexual orientation, and socioeconomic status that professional and client bring to interactions. In looking at the website, I also noticed that the organization has a code of ethics, and part of the code of ethics is that practitioners have to be competent and also have to be culturally competent. And that, part of it is not only acquiring skills, but understanding the impact of cultural variables and language exposure on the acquisition of the clients and patients. So I was pleased to see that it's very much emphasized that practitioners in this field must be culturally competent. So cultural competent practice looks like, there's many ways that cultural competence practice looks like. Here are a couple of examples that were on the website. Completing self-assessment to consider the influence of one's own biases and beliefs and potential impact on service delivery. Integrating your client's traditions, customs, values, and beliefs in service delivery. Identifying appropriate intervention and assessment strategies that are consistent with the client's values and that won't create a chasm between the clinician and their community. Demonstrating respect for individuals' race, ethnicity, gender identity, gender expression. It's also cultural competence also demonstrated by advocating. For example, providing appropriate culturally relevant consumer information and marketing materials, collaborating with professionals across disciplines and with local national organizations to gain knowledge or develop and disseminate educational, health, and medical information pertinent to particular communities. So that's all part of culturally competent practice. So in terms of developing cultural competence, there are several theoretical frameworks that are out that talk about how does one become culturally competent. One that I used for my dissertation was called the Cultural Competence Practice Model by Doman Lum and Rowena Fong. And in that model, they posit that in order to become culturally competent, practitioners have to have cultural awareness, they have to be aware of cultural values, they have to develop knowledge acquisition in terms of how do you obtain knowledge of different cultures. They have to have skill development in terms of interacting with people from various diversities, and they have to have inductive learning. In this case, inductive learning means you have to have, this process is ongoing and never ending. Another model that is used is developed by Cross et al. And this is what is also used by people in the speech pathology profession. And this is also on the website. And this model, you see there's different levels of cultural competence. It goes from cultural destructiveness, which is the entry level, all the way up to multiculturally proficiency. And what's nice about this model is that there's gradations that one can go up depending on the populations you work with. Again, but it's an ongoing process. So in order to become culturally competent, there are a couple of things. One, you have to recognize there's an ongoing process that involves self-awareness and cultural humility. It has to start with a self-assessment of your values, your biases, beliefs, and understand how these factors could impact your participation, your perception of communication and abilities and patterns. You also have to have an attitude shift in terms of how you, as a practitioner and a college and school-educated person, may not know everything. You have to be able to step back and recognize your clients are your experts and that they have a lot that they can teach you. The other thing you have to do is seek and gain culture-specific knowledge and experience. So while cultural competence is very important, and as practitioners we have to involve ourselves in that process ongoing, there are a couple of challenges that cultural competence presents. One, there are narrow definitions of competence. You know, one tends to think that if we take X many classes, that means you're experts in cultural competence. So it can kind of set you up. It kind of leads one to believe there's a mastery of a finite body of knowledge. There aren't really any effective quantitative measures of cultural competence. Like, you've taken a couple classes, how do you know you're culturally competent? And you know, part of the models make one believe that there's a learning endpoint. So they tend to make you think that once you've taken a training or a workshop on cultural competence, you're done, which can be detrimental to a practitioner and to your clients. For that reason, two researchers, Tervalan and Murray Garcia, Dr. Tervalan is a doctor, Dr. Murray Garcia is a nurse, and they came up with a cultural humility model, which they feel is the next step beyond cultural competence. This is from Webster. It's defined as being as a quality of or state of being humble. So cultural humility is how do you practice professionally with humility, being humble at all times. Cultural humility involves the practitioner being flexible and humble about stereotypes. As practitioners, you have to be able to recognize you do come in with stereotypes. You know, that's part of how we grow and we learn as youth and growing up, and you have to be able to acknowledge that you may have one and recognize how it may impact your practice. You have to be able to be involved in an ongoing process of self-critique and self-awareness. Practitioner has to be flexible and humble to assess new cultural dimensions of each patient. One has to recognize that while you may have expertise working with a certain population, every person that you meet brings their own history that makes it a new experience, and you have to recognize that. This is one of the biggest things that I think practitioners have a hard time recognizing is being humble and flexible to say they don't know when they truly don't know. You know, it's hard when a client asks you a question and we're taught that because we're professionals, we're supposed to know everything. But it's okay to say, I don't know. You know, and I haven't never worked with this population or heard this instance. Can you teach me? So you have to show humility to be able to do that. Cultural humility involves the practitioner's engagement in an ongoing process of awareness of the perspective of others. Also, cultural humility involves active listening, client-patient focused interviewing, community-based care, and advocacy training. So as practitioners, we also have to learn how to advocate for our clients in case there are services that they need that based on their cultural needs that our agencies may not provide. Sometimes we have to advocate for that, either on a local level or sometimes up to a policy level. So that's all part of cultural humility. So in the words of Mahatma Gandhi, you must be the change you want to see in the world. So my challenge is, as you go into your, continue on your professional development and go into the field, I urge you to continue checking yourself in the mirror to make sure that you're changing as well as you're working with your clients. With that, I thank you for your time.
I want to thank Dr. Lewis for setting the theme for our presentation today, cultural humility. And I agree, let's all take on that challenge of becoming culturally humble. What I would like to do now is introduce my colleague, Dr. Philip Hernandez, Assistant Professor of Communication Disorders at Stockton. And he is going to tell you about an exciting new program coming to Stockton in the fall.
Yeah, we have a new program that starts fall 2018. Now, share this with your peers, your colleagues, share this with other students in other programs and other universities, but we are offering this off starting fall 2018. We are accepting applications now. And it's the Hispanic Emphasis Specialization Program. And it's for master's level students that want to focus more on the Hispanic population, the assessment, treatment, that type of stuff. So why the need? And let's take a look at some data. The Hispanic population demographics in the United States and ASHA's membership, American Speech and Language Hearing Association. Some facts. So the Census Bureau describes Hispanic or Latino ethnicity as a person of Cuban, Mexican, Puerto Rican, South or Central American, or other Spanish culture or origin, regardless of race. The Hispanics are the largest minority group in the United States. By 2060, it's going to comprise of 28% of the population. And it's estimated that 54 million Hispanics in the United States, it's going to comprise of 70% of the population. And the largest population of Hispanics are in Texas, Florida, which make up half of the Hispanic population, okay? Some of the states where 30% of the population is Hispanic is in Arizona, which is 30%, California, New Mexico, and Texas. And then we have other states that have 1 million Hispanic residents, which includes New Jersey, which is very important for us to create emphasis programs such as the Hispanic Emphasis Program. Of the Spanish-speaking Hispanics in the United States, 57% are bilingual. Second to English, as you know, Spanish is the second most spoken language in the United States. And it's spoken by 40 million people in the country and 2.6 million non-Hispanics. So Spanish is a popular language, okay? Here we have 6 out of 10, 60% of the Hispanics speak English or are bilingual. Different varies about bilingualism, and I talk about that in my classes. Hispanics in the United States break down into three groups. So 36% are bilingual, 25% mainly English, 38% mainly Spanish. So in summary, Hispanics are the largest group in the United States, and more than half are bilingual. Okay. And here we have some charts. I always like to, I'm a visual person. So we have the non-Hispanic white, we see 1980, with the Hispanic with the orange. So we see the line going up, going down. So by 2050, you see where we're going to be. So it's going to be like a 50-50 thing. Okay. In some states, more than half of the children are Hispanic. So we have on the red there, we have between 23 and 59% of the students are Hispanic. We see New Jersey there with 24. New York, okay. And then ASH's membership, right? So ASH's membership consists of 180,000 SLPs and audiologists. Only 7% meet ASH's definition of a bilingual service provider. 6% are SLPs and 4% are audiologists. This is what we have here. That's ASH's definition of a bilingual SLP. Ability to describe the process of normal speech and language development and acquisition in bilingual and monolingual. Okay. Written also, the ability to administer, interpret formal and informal assessment procedures to distinguish between a difference and a disorder. Ability to apply intervention strategies for treatment of communication disorders, and ability to recognize cultural factors that affect service delivery. Spanish language providers in the states. So New York has 11%, excuse me, New Jersey 7%, and Pennsylvania 3% speech bilingual SLPs. So the Hispanic Emphasis Program. So currently there are 300 SLP programs and audiology programs across the country, and only 50 have a Hispanic Emphasis program, type of program. And we're the only one in New Jersey starting next fall. So we're pretty excited about that. So there is a need for graduate level training in bilingual speech pathology and provide the hands-on training in communication sciences, communication disorders, and swallowing disorders. Okay. So the purpose of the Hispanic Emphasis Program is to enhance preparation of for future bilingual SLPs with a special interest in working with Spanish, English, bilingual individuals diagnosed with communication swallowing disorders. Now, for prospective students, they must complete the following. So they have to respond to the supplementary application that's on the CITCAS, that's where you apply for different grad programs. Write it in Spanish. You're going to write a 500 word or less on why you want to participate in the program, okay? You have to complete a prerequisite course on second language acquisition and get a B+ or higher in that. And we offer that at Stockton online. So anyone's interested in taking that here. And this course is available in any university or college that offers an EASL certification program for teachers. Okay. You must earn at least a 3.2. So it's the same prerequisites, the same admissions requirements for regular students. So it's a 3.2. And demonstrate Spanish language proficiency with a Spanish phone interview with a native Spanish-speaking faculty member at Stockton. Okay, so that's what they need to do to apply. And we do provide graduate assistantships. We have 2 GA positions available for the top 2 candidates that apply. And this is what the academic curriculum looks like. So our MSD program is 60 credits. 51 of those credits, I'm going to talk about that in the next slide. So you take 51 credits with your regular courses, your required elective, and then 6 credits minimum with your clinical experiences. All right, so academic curriculum. So what you're going to do is you're going to do all your assignments going to be infused throughout the curriculum, like in phonology, language course, your research course, advanced clinical methods. And what you're going to do is one of your requirements for the course, whether it's a presentation or a research project or a case study that's related to the field of bilingual speech pathology. And then what you're going to do is submit it, and I'll consult with the instructor of the course to grade it and provide feedback that way to meet that requirement. And then the research course, and we talked to Dr. Pia about this, and she agreed. But the review must address a bilingual multicultural area related to the field of communication disorders. Okay. All right. So, and a big part of it is the community engagement. They're going to have to complete a minimum of 10 hours of community engagement, which is, it may include or not limited to volunteer work, a variety of settings and events, development of bilingual materials, parent-teacher SLP workshops related to issues about communication disorders. So at least 10 hours of community engagement must be required. And then the clinical curriculum. So that we have a bilingual specialty clinic, so you're going to do 1 semester of bilingual specialty clinic. And then one of your clinical sites, Clinic 2 or Clinic 3, with a site where there's a big number of Hispanic clients, right? But we're going to work that out with our clinic externship person. All right, so prior to graduation, our students have to demonstrate competencies to provide appropriate diagnostic and therapeutic services to monolingual and bilingual Hispanic clients through the various course assignments. The required elective, which is bilingual populations, the assessment and treatment, and community engagement activities, and then your clinical experiences. So we have there's a flyer in your folder that looks like this. Please share that with friends who are teachers, anyone who's might be interested in providing needs services in the clinic. So at Stockton, we do have a clinic on campus, and I think it started last fall, so it's a year already, where we have a bilingual specialty clinic and we provide bilingual services. There is the location, the address, contact information. Services are provided by our graduate students with the supervision of a bilingual SLP, ASHA certified SLP. Right, so please share that with community organizations, schools, hospitals, parents, and we're going to post this on our website. And I wanted to share with you, hopefully it opens, it's our video of our speech and hearing clinic.
Hello, and welcome to Stockton University Speech and Hearing Clinic. My name is Christina, and I'm a graduate student in the Communication Disorders program. It is my pleasure to take you on this virtual tour of our clinic to get you acquainted with our facility and our services that we provide to the Stockton community as well as our surrounding areas. The Speech and Hearing Clinic, located at 10 West Jimmy Leeds Road, can be found just off of exit 41 off the Garden State Parkway, about a mile east of Stockton's main campus in the Parkway building. It is the only university clinic in southern New Jersey. Graduate students in the Communication Disorder program have the opportunity to work with clients who are enrolled at the Speech and Hearing Clinic under the direct supervision of licensed ASHA certified speech language pathologists. As part of the graduate student clinical experience, students work collaboratively and share ideas with faculty and peers, develop goals and objectives for therapy, and create appropriate treatment plans for each client they see. Students meet with their clinical supervisors on a regular basis and are fully supported in the development and refinement of their clinical skills. Our clinic houses a variety of materials that clinicians can use in their therapy sessions, and we also have access to cutting-edge technology resources. Attending Stockton's graduate program gives you the same foundational knowledge and skills as other communication sciences and disorders programs, but brings along with it an entire community of alumni, faculty, and staff that continues to support one another in a multitude of ways. This creates lifelong relationships and partnerships that feel a lot like family. The clinic provides quality patient care and services to the community by treating a variety of communication needs. These can include delayed or disordered speech and language, articulation, auditory processing, voice, fluency, accent management, and audiological services across the lifespan. The clinic welcomes referrals from schools, early intervention, doctors, and related professionals, as well as from the clients and families themselves. Services are provided on a semester basis in the spring, summer, and fall, and we welcome new clients each semester. For more information, please be sure to visit our website or email us at speechclinic@stockton.edu. Thanks for watching.
All right. Any questions about the Hispanic emphasis specialization? So just share this information with other peers and other universities in your communities, and it starts in the fall. Thank you.
Okay, switching topics again. Vamos a leer. Let's read. Literacy considerations. Okay, and Dr. Lewis did have to leave, but he did kind of a nice segue for me here. And the author was talking about some cultural considerations in literacy and some biases that she experienced as a child. So I will be talking a little bit about that as well. But let's start with some good news, okay? Hispanic students are progressing in reading. So based on data from the National Assessment of Educational Progress, over the past 10 years, average reading scores for Hispanic students in U.S. public schools rose 6 points at grade 4 and 8 points at grade 8, gains roughly equal to half a grade level, and both increases were found to be statistically significant. Okay, but there's always a but, right? So in the last 4 years, the progress has started to slow, and the gains were not consistent across all U.S. states. So the top performing school districts were in large cities: Boston, Chicago, LA, New York, San Diego, and Washington, D.C. And all of those districts do serve a large percentage of low-income Hispanic students. The two lowest scoring school districts, one was Fresno and one was our neighbor in Philadelphia. So they had students who were not performing as well as in other districts. Okay, so in the fourth grade assessment of reading, Hispanic students were 19% of the data that was reported for 2005. But by 2015, they represented 26% of the population. Among the 8th graders in the study, Hispanic students were 17% of the population in 2005, but by 2015, they comprised 25%. So that goes along with what Dr. Hernandez was talking about this morning, that students from Hispanic culture are an increasingly larger part of the public school population. Okay, so we also have some data on students that are newly arrived to the United States. So 41% of immigrants to the U.S. score low enough to be described as below basic or functionally illiterate in English. And with a 6, so that's for all immigrants. Among the Hispanic population, 63% are reported as below basic literacy level, and that is a higher rate than non-Hispanic immigrants whose below basic literacy level in English is 33%. So there are some implications for the children of immigrants. The impact goes on beyond that first generation. So 22% of second generation Hispanics and 24% of third plus generation Hispanics are still below basic literacy level in English. And data suggests that improvements in English literacy are slower among Hispanic immigrant families than other immigrant groups. Okay, so we're going to talk about things we can do in just a moment. So here are some cultural considerations to think about when it comes to families and literacy. So there was a study by Rivera and Lavin that found that many Latin American immigrant mothers wanted to help their children succeed, but did not have the school experience that was necessary. Okay, I think I'm on the wrong slide here. Okay, let me see. Okay, yep, sorry, got ahead of myself. Okay, so cultural considerations. Shared book reading with children is a typical middle-class literacy practice. However, many cultures place a greater weight on oral storytelling. Also, adults with limited education and limited English abilities are more likely to be living in poverty. So poverty itself does not directly impact literacy, but there's an indirect impact through limited access to print resources as well as tools related to literacy like computers. Also, Latino adults who immigrated from urban or other native countries, or they came from urban areas in their native countries, are more likely to have had formal schooling experience and higher level of literacy than people that came from more rural areas. So people that had higher literacy experiences in their native country are going to have more experience to share with their children when it comes to literacy practices. So also, you heard the clip about Peru in the diversity video. So many Latino parents believe that children under 5 are not yet ready for the kinds of activities that we relate as reading readiness. So they may not work on those emergent literacy skills at home, even though they're expected to have those skills when they get to school. And then there was a study by Trainin et al. That reported that Latino parents are interested in and capable of reading to their children. However, there are circumstances like limited time, limited finances, transportation difficulties that interfere with their ability to do so. Okay, so here I was getting ahead of myself a little bit. So Rivera and Lavin did find that many Latin American immigrant mothers in their study wanted to help children succeed, but they did not have school experience in their own background to be able to do that. So here's one quote from their study. "Every once in a while in the mornings when I dropped him off, the teacher would tell me, 'Look, Jose did not do his homework. But how could I help him?' She, the teacher, said, 'This is the homework he was supposed to do.' But I didn't know how to help him because I did not know how to write or understand English. I did not know how to explain it to him or say, 'Son, this is how you say this,' because I never went to school. I only went to 2nd grade in my country, but it's not the same thing you learn here." Okay, so let's talk about kindergarten readiness. Okay, in a study by Delgado and Stoll, they found that differences in kindergarten reading scores between Latino and white children were accounted for these variables. So caregiver education and beliefs, maternal education, marital status, poverty, access to books, and also access to a computer in the home. So what can we do? Delgado and Stoll recommended the following. So being active to bring about policy change. So we need active access to we need to increase access to quality preschool experiences, and those preschools need to have appropriately trained staff. We need affordable childcare for working parents, including care for children that are ill. We need increased access to books as well as computers. And as we know that extended family is very important in this community, we need training for relatives and non-relatives who serve as child care providers on how to engage children in school readiness activities. I can send you the PowerPoint. Okay. Okay. What else can we do? Rivera and Lavin reported on a successful program in Chelsea, Mass., which is bordering on Boston. It was called the Chelsea Family Literacy Program. So I don't know if this is related or not, but recall that Boston was one of the school districts that had higher reading rates for Latino children. So they did a program that had 4 parts. So one was a parent time session that met once a week for 2 hours, and that was sort of a support group where parents could exchange ideas and concerns. They had something called PACT, Parent and Child Together, where parents visited their child's classroom twice a week for 20 to 30 minutes. And then they had a PACT debriefing. So all of the moms met for 1 hour a week to discuss and evaluate what they observed in the classrooms. They did only mention that mothers were included in the study. And then they also had adult ESL classes where the mothers learned English as well as literacy skills, and those classes were held at their children's school. Ortiz Ordoño Hasis recommended obtaining preliminary background information on the parents. Okay, why is that important? So you can develop what they call a family literacy curricula. So you need to find out from which country the family originates, which language do they use when they read, what interests does the family have, what types of materials do they enjoy reading, how comfortable are the parents in reading to their children, what are their goals for sharing literacy activities with their children, and in what ways do the parents currently contribute to developing early reading skills? And then we can build upon the strengths that the family has. Okay, they also continued that we need to include multicultural literature. So this ties back to the TED Talk we heard this morning. Addressing themes such as preserving tradition, celebrating the richness of culture, telling one's personal story, telling stories of people who share similar experiences, valuing family, and addressing social issues and concerns. Okay. What else can we do? We can hold parent trainings where parents have an opportunity to reflect on and discuss among themselves the way in which literacy impacts their lives. And we need to help parents understand that with literacy comes empowerment. So that's a very central theme in a lot of communities, is how can we become empowered, and literacy is a tool to empowerment. We need to vary the time during the day when parents can come to school. So in this particular study, they had a dinner time, a lunch time. They had a time called Books for Breakfast, where parents could come in the morning before they went to work. And we need to understand that some parents might not feel comfortable coming to school. Maybe they had negative experiences in their own schooling. I'm also going to offer a piece from my personal experience. I did not come across this in my literature search, but I know when I worked in Miami, I also worked in the community that you saw in the video, Immokalee, Florida. If you eat a tomato this winter, it probably was picked by a farm worker in Immokalee, Florida. That sometimes parents will not come to school if they're undocumented. So even those schools, by law, at least let's hope that it continues this way, do not report that information. They have a fear that they're going to be disclosed as undocumented, and unfortunately that will deter some families from coming to school events as well. Okay, so what else can we do? Remember that family means extended family, so we want to encourage all the family members to become literacy partners. Okay, and that includes the family members who are not literate themselves. They have many strengths they can bring to the process. So we said that many cultures value oral storytelling, and strong oral storytelling, oral narrative is a precursor to literacy skills. So through oral language and oral narrative, we can work on skills like rhyming, singing songs, telling riddles, telling oral histories, poetry from the culture, proverbs and folklore. All of those oral kinds of information are good foundations for reading. Storytelling allows parents to create their own stories. They can make up a story with a beginning, a middle, and an end. Storytelling prepares children for understanding literature that they read later on because they learn the complex components of literature, such as a motive for the action in the story, the author or the audience's perspective, relationships, and the cultural definition of what makes for a good story. Educators can model for parents how to share a wordless picture book with their children to teach important literacy skills. So for those of you that are in Dr. P's class, have you worked with the wordless books yet? You will. Okay, so we can use books without words, and hopefully, again, if the technology gods are on my side today, I'll show you a little example in just a moment. So you can work on skills like predicting, story sequencing, concepts of print, so even though it's wordless, it may still have a title on it, describing details with illustrations, and identifying key story elements or main characters. Okay, so here's an example of a wordless book. I'm going to show it to you in just a minute because I don't want to forget to tell you my other resources here. So I have a link here for Reading Rockets. That's one of my favorite go-to websites. They have lots of information on there. You can see, for working on reading. But this particular link has Reading Rocket's favorite wordless picture books. So some of them are wordless versions of books that you may have seen with words. So I'm going to show you Chalk in just a minute. Okay, so those are some examples of some wordless picture books. Okay, and also I have links here for some resources for Latin American folk tales. Some of you know that I teach a class on play, and when we learn about other cultures, we talk about folk tales as a form of play and recreation in many cultures. So I've provided you with a link for some folk tales there as well. Okay, so I'm just going to do a little demo lesson for you here. So this is Chalk by Bill Thompson. So I might start out by looking at the picture and doing some predicting. Okay, so what do you think this story is about? What do we see on the cover? I see a dinosaur, and he has something in his mouth. Could be a trick-or-treat bag, could be a shopping bag. And I see some springs underneath of him. But the name of it is Chalk. So what does a dinosaur have to do with chalk? Okay, so what's happening in this picture? I see some characters now, and it looks like children. And it's a rainy day. They have an umbrella, they have their rain clothes on, and they're walking up to that dinosaur. Maybe they're going to find out what's in his bag. Whoops, too fast. Okay, so what did they find in the bag? That's where the chalk comes in. They found some chalk. What did the girl decide to make with chalk? What would you draw if you had a piece of chalk? What happened when she drew a sun? It was raining and now the sun is out. Oh. Do you remember a time when you were playing outside and it was raining and then the sun came out? Now somebody else is going to make something with chalk. What does it look like she's making? Maybe they're butterflies. Do you see some butterflies in the picture? There they are, just like magic. Oh, now the boy's going to draw something with chalk. What do you think he might draw? There's the dinosaur. I wonder why she's hiding her eyes. Oh my goodness. What happened to the dinosaur? He doesn't have that spring underneath of him anymore. Oh, where would you hide if a dinosaur were coming after you? I think he found them. Oh, how would you feel if a dinosaur were peeking at you inside of a sliding board? Oh, quick, let's draw something. What can we draw? Oh, we drew a rain cloud, and what happened? Oh, the dinosaur is, what's happening to him? Is he melting? What happens when something melts? I think he went back to chalk. Goodbye, dinosaur. See you next time. The end. So you can make the story whatever you want because there's no words, okay? So you can work on vocabulary, you can work on predicting, beginning, middle, and end, and characters. So there's lots of ways that you can involve parents in literacy, even if the parents themselves do not have strong literacy skills in English or in their native language. Now, I didn't have time to find the photo of Dr. Hernandez from when he visited, I think it was your elementary school last year. They were in the Stockton Times when his class visited. So Dr. Hernandez's class, which was your school's class, did a parent training in Pleasantville. So they had some books, were they Spanish language children's books that they brought, and they did a training for teachers, for parents. So they're fitting right in with our best practices here. Okay, so it was parents in the morning and teachers in the afternoon. So he and some of the grad students did that training and provided some literacy materials for the children as well. So you can see again that we're trying to practice what we preach here. So, and we're hoping to extend that as hopefully some of you will be applying to our Hispanic Emphasis program for next year, or you will tell your friends to apply.
All right, so now we're going to do a round table discussions. And what we need is I know this table right here attended my session, so you're going to have to split up to different tables. So let's do these 3 tables right here. This table, so just split up. We want people in different, from different sessions and different tables. Yeah. There's a table back there. What you're going to do is you're going to get a set of questions. You're going to answer those questions. You will have one recorder, so one person taking notes, and then that individual is going to report back to the group when time is up, okay? So let's take about 5 minutes, 10 minutes. All right, let's get started. First question is, how would you summarize the session you attended? So we'll start in this table here. Who wants to take the mic? Okay.
Well, should I pass it around to someone from each different session so they can quickly summarize? Okay, so from Dr. Hadley's session.
That was me.
Okay, so I was at Dr. Hadley's session. We mostly discussed different counseling techniques for families. We went through the emotional processes that families go through following a diagnosis. We also went through different counseling techniques that can be used, such as desensitizing the client, making the situation seem less scary, role-playing them in a safe environment with the clinician, and just using empathetic listening skills. And then towards the end of the presentation, we did talk about some cultural diversity, things to keep in mind when working with different populations.
Is there anything else anyone want to add to that from Dr. Halley's session? What about Dr. Cruz?
I was with Dr. Cologne, so I'll...
We were all confused. She said it to you too, and then you were like...
So we were speaking about being, culturally competent in practice, the difference between Latino and Hispanic, and, that we don't need to specifically know everything about the difference, but just be aware that there is a difference, and some people will, identify strongly with one over the other or prefer. So just being aware that there is a difference really speaks about not assuming the status of your client, with permanent residency, citizen, all these different terms, and because there could be a mixed family status. And just because the mom has one status doesn't mean that the child does, or the husband, or whatever that situation is. And we got into the different cultural aspects, with different families and stuff, and being aware, as we were mentioned earlier, how you may have one client, but you're not working with just that client. You're working with the mom, the grandma, the engineer, that's really close because so many people are your family. So just being aware that there's many different aspects to the culture, and making sure that you're listening and just attentive to what they bring to you.
Hello. I was in Dr. Hernandez's session, and we talked a lot about diagnosing people who are bilingual, mainly children, and how you have to assess in both languages, and you really can't make any assumptions about the language that they speak. You have to know about dialects, different accents, and the difference between a disorder and a difference. We talked about how long have they been in the country, or how long have they been learning English? And it takes about 7 years to be fully acclimated to that language. So if you get a referral for a student, I feel like, hey guys, if you get a referral for a student who's only been here for 2 years, that might not be an adequate amount of time for them to have garnered enough language acquisition to be evaluated properly.
Let's go with the second question. What would you consider best practice based on the session you attended today?
Okay, so I don't remember the techniques that Dr. Hadley said, but there's different ways that you can speak to the family of your client in regards to counseling. Also, I didn't know that we as clinicians actually incorporate counseling in our treatment plans. So I was never aware that someone who stutters, like you can help decrease their anxiety when they're in a social setting. I would think that that's more like of a therapist type of job. I never really considered it to being our responsibility as well.
So I had Dr. Hernandez, and we were talking about just different ways to test a client. So like you can do informal or formal assessments. Like it's important to test like both languages when you're doing a test, and you should always obtain like a language sample and modify the tests like for a bilingual client, and even for a standardized assessment, like because the tests don't have to count, you can just use them for your own data purposes. Let me see. And then we talked about how it's important to be culturally competent and like self-aware and stuff like that. So did you have anything else to add? Okay. Someone else from a different session?
So I had Dr. Cologne's session. We were talking about the Latino culture, and we should, oh, sorry, I forgot. What was the question? Oh, practices. Yeah, like we should really take into consideration their cultural aspects and their values and their specific values, and not to overgeneralize like the Hispanic culture too.
Question number 3, what areas do you see for improvement in the area of the profession?
We were just saying how we need to leave our biases at the door, but also understand who we are as a person and take that into consideration when we're doing practice. And like avoid assumptions and really just focus on that individual as a whole and the family, and know you're doing therapy to not just that person, but you need to involve the family in certain cultures.
We also kind of said just throughout all of our seminars that we were in that everyone needs to be educated more. So that's an area of improvement for basically any of the areas that we were in.
So think of a research question that might contribute to the area of the profession. Did anyone come up with a research question? You have time? No time? No time? Okay. So moving forward, we have a panel discussion. So the panelists want to come and sit up here. So we have Dr. Schindler from the OT department. We have Dr. P from the Communication Disorders department. We have Evelyn Hernandez, exchange student from the Communication Disorders program. Then we have
Fabian Lozano.
Javier Desano from the PT program.
Gian Hernandez.
Giel Hernandez.
Johanna Pandino.
Johanna Bandillo. Okay, so you guys grab a seat there. And what they're going to do is talk about Stockton's collaboration with Universidad de Rosario over in Colombia. They're going to share their experiences.
Well, I can start the panel discussion because I'm the coordinator of the program that we have, which is an interchange program between Stockton University and actually 2 schools in Colombia, South America. So this started 5 years ago in 2012, and I actually have a personal connection to Colombia. That's sort of how it all started. And 27 years ago, my husband and I adopted our daughter from Colombia, South America. So I always knew that we would go back, and when my daughter was 21 years old, we went back to visit Colombia. So she had wanted to see it at that time, to see the orphanage that she was adopted from and to get to know the country. So we did that. It was a beautiful trip. I can't even say how beautiful it was. And what had even happened at the orphanage is that, well, 27 years ago when we adopted our daughter, there were 5 or 6 adoptions every single week at this orphanage. So when my husband and I went to get our daughter, there was also 5 or 6 other couples. And over the years, that was a time in Colombia when things were really, really difficult, and the war was in full swing. And so it was a country that was experiencing a lot of poverty and a lot of instability. So there were a lot of adoptions happening at that time. But then as years have gone on, the country has really improved. And last year they signed a peace agreement to end their 60-year civil war. So they're still in the midst of that peace process, but it's a completely different country now than it was all those years ago. So over the course of time, what happens in countries as they improve is that their adoptions decrease. So there's very few adoptions happening now in Colombia. There might be adoptions within the country, but not outside of the country. But we had the great fortune that the week that we were there was one international adoption on the exact day that we were there, and it was a couple from New York, and my daughter got to present to them their baby. So the very first time that they saw their baby, she got to present the baby to them. So that was a beautiful experience, and we saw the country. And so when it came time to leave, after that week, I was really sad because I knew that I would always go back to the country. That's the country that allowed me to be a mother. So I always knew that I would go back, and now I had gone back, and I didn't know of another reason to go back again. So that made me sad. But when I came back here, the Office of Global Engagement here at Stockton announced that they wanted to expand their learning abroad programs, and they wanted to expand it to countries that we did not have an agreement with, and countries that were somewhat different than us, because we have a lot of agreements with countries that are similar in a way, like Europe and Canada. So I took that as sort of like a message to pursue this. So that is what happened. So I wrote a grant, and the grant was funded. And from that, I contacted 2 universities in Colombia to see if they would be interested in an exchange agreement. So the first university I contacted is the university that these students are from, and it's called Universidad del Rosario. And it's a big university in Bogota, Colombia, and it's a private university. It's the University of the Rosary. And I also contacted another school, which is more of a public university, and that's called Escuela Colombiana de Rehabilitación. So Universidad del Rosario has all the programs that a typical university would have, and it's a prestigious university in Colombia. In fact, something like 38 of the presidents of the country of Colombia graduated from Universidad del Rosario. So it has law and just everything, medicine, and has a health science campus. And then the other school is a much smaller school. It's nothing like we have in the United States. All they have is OT, PT, and speech. That's all that they have at that school. So it's a very nice experience for us, because when we go to Colombia, now we're going in 2018, will be our 4th year of going, and it's an interprofessional group of students and faculty who go. We started out with a group of 13 a few years ago. Now we're up to 40. And the 40 includes OT, PT, speech, nursing, public health, BSHS, and I think that's everybody. Everybody from... and
Spanish, no?
And Spanish, yes. The Spanish program, too. Yes, so the Spanish program has gone for the last couple of years, too. So we have 40 students, 35 students, and the faculty who are going again next spring for spring break. And our 1 week there with a big group of people is a combination of visiting their school, Universidad del Rosario, the other school, and going to some of their clinical sites. So they take us to some of their clinical sites, and we see what those are like, and they're discipline specific. And then also we go to their campus, and then we have some cultural events that we do in the midst of it all. So we go to downtown Bogota, and we go to a coffee plantation, and we go to a salt mine. So it's a very busy week, but we get to see a little bit of everything. And then in exchange, we have an agreement with the 2 schools, but with Universidad del Rosario, the exchange is that they have 4 students who come here for a much longer period of time. So we have a very big group that goes there for 1 week, and that works for us because we're all in accredited programs and we have all of our things we have to meet, so we don't have a lot of free time. But they're doing their clinical here, one of their field works. So the students in PT, the 3 students in PT, their PT program is a 5-year program. It's a bachelor's degree with a 5-year program. They have 5 field works that they have to do, and this is their 5th field work. And Evelyn is in the speech pathology program, and she's in the middle of her program. But it's a similar program in terms of the number of years of academics and then the field work. So it's similar, like when I went to school many, many years ago for OT, I got my bachelor's degree in OT. So the curriculum still is somewhat similar because it's entry level. So I have a few pictures to show you about it, and then also they can talk a little bit about their experience. And Monica has gone for 2 years, so she could, information she wants to share too. So, I mean, if you want to do that, then I'll work on getting the slides pulled up.
Oh, sure.
Okay.
Okay. So I've been extremely fortunate, I guess, and privileged to be able to go to Columbia with Vicky's group for 2 years now, and to bring students from our program as well. So the first year, there was only 1 communication disorders student that came. Last year, there were 4. This year, I think there are 2 of our students that are coming. Okay. I won't be going this year, which I'm very sad about. But anyway. It's always been a wonderful experience for us going. Not only did we get to visit the 2 universities and interact with the students there and interact with the faculty there, but we also got to visit clinical sites in Columbia. And so some of the places that we've been able to visit and observe, actually, students perform therapy, or trainee clinicians do the kinds of things that you guys do here as trainee clinicians. Some of these places included Meredith Hospital, and then we also visited a private school, which I think was an elementary through high school, really, age range. Okay, and then we also visited several private foundations, such as Operation Smile, which takes care of children with cleft lip and palate and provides services to them of both the surgeries and all kinds of speech and psychological therapies that are needed afterwards. And as I've said, it's been always an extremely wonderful experience. But what I've been thinking about was that I've been sad that we could only bring a few of our students with us on these trips, and it's always going to be like that for clear reasons. So my goal has been to try and extend this experience to all of our students in our program in some way. And so the way I've been trying to do this was by introducing some kind of an aspect of a communication collaboration between students in my classes and students in Columbia into my courses. So I've experimented with different ways of doing this. The first time I've done this was by having groups of students in my program work with groups of students at the Universidad del Rosario, just exchanging information about cultural similarities and differences, and also about different aspects of speech-language pathology in Colombia and in the United States. Last year, I did it slightly differently. So we had a pen pal activity where students in my class were matched one-to-one with students taking similar classes at the Universidad del Rosario. And Evelyn, I think you were one of those students, right?
Yeah, with Katie Verdon.
With Katie, right, yeah. And so these students got a chance over the course of a semester to interact with each other via email or Skype or whatever media they were comfortable with, okay? And again, the goal of this was to both learn a little bit more about each other's cultures, but also to try and learn a little bit more of Spanish, and I guess for Colombian students to learn a little bit more of English as well. And this year, for those students who are in my class this semester, we will do this again slightly differently. So this time we'll be trying to work on case studies together with students in Colombia, and this time we'll be working actually with students at ECR for the first time rather than Universidad del Rosario. So it'll be still a different way of engaging with students on the other side, but I truly believe that it's important to have these individual interactions with people from different cultures and people who speak different languages. And so I am hoping that by having these activities, I'll kind of facilitate that for the students. Okay. I guess by way of general impressions and things that I have learned through my trips to Colombia, one general impression in terms of the practice of speech-language pathology over there and over here has to do with the fact that over here we're often very much focused on the individual who needs services and who we are providing services to. And it's also been kind of more, I think, as I reflect on my both knowledge and experience in my teaching practice, that's been more of the focus in my teaching. Going over there has drawn my attention much more to the community aspect of the services that we are providing, because the community aspect over there seems to be much more prominent, because services tend to be more scarce than they are here. So that's the aspect that I have become increasingly aware of, and that I am trying to introduce more and more into my teaching over here, because I think that we can address the needs of individuals with communication disabilities, both at the individual level, but also at the community level, and maybe even at the cultural level. I am a big dreamer, and I think that, you know, at some point, if we could change our understanding of what is a disability and what is, you know, a difference, right? Maybe we could kind of, I don't know, get ourselves out of our jobs, so to speak. Maybe we would not need to have a job anymore on some level. But anyway, that's me, the dreamer. Thank you.
This is a picture of Universidad del Rosario. So it is the school that these 4 students attend, and that's what I had mentioned to you. So it's 33 of Columbia's presidents have graduated from that. So they have 3 campuses, and one of them is in downtown Columbia, and it's called a claustro. So we are inside of the claustro right there. And on the right-hand side is a picture of one of their classrooms. And then the bottom right-hand side is a picture of a student area. And that's our group from 2 years ago, I think. And there we are again. And they have the campus for health sciences, which is a little bit of a distance from the main campus, but still in the city. So these are just photos from there. Quinta Mutis. Yes. And this is the second school that we visit, Escuela Colombiana. So as I mentioned, they just have OT, PT, and physical therapy. And it's all just in one building. But they're in the northern part of the city. They have a little bit more land. And this is just some photos from inside of their school, their ADL kitchen and their PT lab. And when we go there, they put on a traditional Colombian show for us with dancing and things. And this is the orphanage that we visit. It's called FANA, and it stands for Foundation, or the, wait a minute, Foundation. It's for abandoned children. Somehow it translates into that. So, and this is their yard. Just a little bit about the FANA Orphanage. Foundation for the Support of Abandoned Children. So when my husband and I adopted our daughter 27 years ago from there, it was all adopted children. But now it has changed, since adoptions are fewer and far between, and now it serves as a daycare for children who are of a lower socioeconomic area in that community. So they can go for free there, which is great. So then the parents can work. And that's their yard, and our group in their yard. And then this is just some pictures of downtown Bogota. And the top right is the central square. It's sort of like our Washington, D.C., and that's where their presidential palace is. the city of Bogota is like the city of New York, has about 8 million people. But it is the whole country of Colombia is sort of near the equator, but Bogota is 8,000 feet above sea level. So they have like an eternal spring. The temperature's always, it's like today. Today reminds me of a day in Bogota. This is what every day is like there. It's like the month of May or the month of September, with usually a little rainstorm during the day. And then Monserrate is a place that we visit. So it's not only a church up on top of a mountain, but they can say a little bit more about it in a minute. And then we visit the coffee plantation. So just some photos from the coffee plantation. And there's all of us. So the coffee plantation is only about 2 hours from Bogota, but it goes down the mountains. So you actually enter like into another climate zone. There's different vegetation. It feels very tropical. And then we visited a salt cathedral. So it's a salt mine that has been mined into a cathedral down below the ground, all made out of salt. That's a hotel we stay at. And the food is delicious. Yes, it's very fresh. They usually have their big meal at the middle of the day, and they have something small at the end of the day. So just some pictures of the food. If you want to say a little bit about your experience, they've only been here a week. They just arrived a week ago. But if you want to say a little bit about your experience so far here in the United States.
Sorry for my English, I'm learning. So for me, it's a really pleasure to be here because I never been outside my country. So I will learn a lot about the speech language pathology here in the United States, because in Colombia the things are so different. So it was a pleasure to be here, and I was in love with this country and with Stockton University, and that's all.
Okay. I feel grateful for stay here today. I am say thank you everybody for stay here and tell about Colombia, Bogota, and Rosario University. I am physical therapy of Bogota, and I think that is a similar program that is stay here, and is excited to know about the different intervention, examination, and diagnostic that to do here. So it's interesting to know about that. And another thing that I feel is so emotion for know a different landscape, and the people is so friendly with us. So thank you so very much.
Okay. I think this is a big opportunity for I can see the different in the countries or of the physical therapies, or in the United States is doctor of physical therapy. In my country is physical therapies. It's a big difference in the universities. It's amazing opportunity for I can see the treatment of the patients, of the method, of the clinical difference. Okay, thank you.
Okay, a pleasure with the Stockton opportunity, because we can open the mind at different experience, but different interventions, different ideas that the clinical therapist has with the patient, and we can result in another places, and it's very gratificant for me, and
so their objectives are similar to the objectives we have when we go there: educational, clinical, and cultural. So they have that combination also. So they attend some of our classes, especially the labs. which is more hands-on, and they also go to various clinics. One of the things, though, is that they come to this country, really any students from any country would come to this country on a J1 visa, it's called. So the J1 visa does not allow them to be a student in a clinic as you would be a student in a clinic. They cannot be able to interact or touch patients who are paying for their services with insurance or private pay or anything of that nature. So they can observe in various places, but we still try to create opportunities that are within the structure of the J1 visa where they can interact. So for example, our student program called Get Fit, that's a program in which our undergraduate students and our graduate students can interact. So they're full Stockton students while they're here, and that's within the realm of the J1 visa, so they can still interact with people in that way. So, and then they have the cultural aspects too. So they're here through the Office of Global Engagement, and that office plans a lot of different weekend activities, to like Fright Fest and Great Adventure and Harry Potter convention or something in Philadelphia. So, and we're doing some other activities too. Yeah, and they're going to stay at a homestay. So they've been at my house for the past week, just 1 week, and now today they moved to their homestays. So their homestays are where they stay with a family for the next 8 weeks, a local family that's on a bus route so that they can have transportation. So, yeah, it's a mutual exchange program, and now it's in its 5th year, and we love it.
Any questions for the panelists? Any question at all? Faculty members? Yes.
Is it just for the semester, or is it the whole year?
That they are here?
Yes.
They're here for 9 weeks.
Okay.
Yeah, and it's the length of their field work is 9 weeks. So they're completing for the 3 physical therapy students, they're completing their 5th and final field work. But Evelyn is completing a field work that's halfway through her curriculum.
While you're here in America, finish the sentence. I would really love to what? While you're visiting, I would really love to go somewhere, see something, do something. What's your excitement? That's your plus. You could. Yeah.
Okay.
I can see the difference.
Where would you like to travel to in the United States? Anything? The United States. Yeah. What would you like to do?
My goals to be here?
Para viajar, ver cosas nuevas.
It's informal.
Yeah.
Have you ever seen Cake Boss? I really want to visit Hoboken, the Carlos Bakery.
The Hoboken? You say Hoboken, New Jersey?
Yeah. Okay. And we also want to visit New York.
New York City.
Yeah. And Washington, and Atlantic City, and all the cities that become possible. Yeah.
Try different kind of food because it's all different, the food and the time that you eat.
The dinner is a very important meal here.
Yeah.
In our country, it's a little meal.
Yeah.
So we are learning to accept all and enjoy all that stuff about the culture, because it's really useful and amazing for us to share the culture.
So, here we have Spanish emphasis programs, and I was wondering if in your school or your programs, do you have any classes that talk about working with other bilingual students?
Yeah, in our university, it's a requirement to graduate, learn English.
So
And we have class in English. A
we
lot of
have
classes in
English classes, and
Wow.
and you know all the academic texts and documents. The most part are in English. So we must learn in English, see classes in English. English is a very important topic in our country.
Cool.
Pues muchas gracias y bienvenidos a Stockton University. So this ends the portion of the discussion. So any other questions or comments about anything that you've learned about today? Anything?
En el programa de ustedes de terapia ocupacional, ¿piensan que eventualmente van a necesitar doctorado para ejercer? ¿O piensan que, o sea, eso ni se menciona? I am asking if in their physical therapy program, do they think at some point they'll need a doctoral degree, as it is in US now, to practice physical therapy?
Sí. In Colombia, it's different the level that you study. The basic is a technique, but the most popular is a professional. You can get the another titles like a doctor, a master, but this is the higher level. Is the high level in Colombia.
Okay, so you can get a doctoral degree in physical therapy, but you don't have to have it to practice.
The Rosario University began and 1 month ago the program of master in science, the health science for OT, PT, and speech language. So it's a new thing that have the university.
Okay, so you're moving in that direction.
Yeah.
They just started this program that they were working on for probably 5 years. Oh, wow. Because I remember when I first visited, and it just started this September. So they have a interprofessional master's degree program. So yes, they're moving in that direction. Interesting. Thank you so much. I was just curious.
Any other questions? All right, thank you very much. Thank you.